I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to speak to you. And I must admit, I wondered why you asked me to be your commencement speaker. I have to guess that you asked me to be with you at such an important moment in your lives because you were intrigued by my somewhat untraditional career as a lawyer, a nonprofit CEO, and philanthropist. I practiced law for nearly 20 years with a local law firm, and then I was the CEO for the Richmond SPCA for about 23 years. I continue to serve on its board and on its executive committee, even though I am now retired as its CEO. My actual professional life was a lot like the commercials that Ellen DeGeneres made a few years back for American Express, where she appears to live out her stated childhood ambition of working with animals. The commercials show her in various office settings working with elephants, llamas, penguins, and the like, and she calls the penguins the executives, which I love. For me, it was actually dogs and cats, not penguins, but my daily work life often seemed just as unpredictable and just as fun. When I used to see those ad spots, I would always think about the fact that working with animals was my childhood ambition also. And actually, I finally fulfilled that ambition for real, not just in a TV commercial. When I reflect back on the young woman that I was when I was sitting right where you are now, about to graduate from the University of Richmond Law School, I remember one primary thing about her. She was focused like a laser beam on achieving success. She saw success, she defined success as whatever everyone else viewed as success. I had to please and impress my parents, my classmates, the friends I grew up with, my professors, and everyone else who crossed my path. I wanted them all to think that I did very important things and I did them brilliantly. While I was still in school, success to me had meant making good grades, becoming an editor of the Law Review, things like that. For the years that followed, it was getting a job at a big law firm, doing work there that made my bosses and clients happy, making partner, and then getting appointed to firm committees. At each stage of my life, I set my priorities according to my perception of the priorities of others. While it was hard work to please and impress everyone else, it was also cheap and easy in another way because all I was doing was imitating other people. I was not thinking deeply about what was truly meaningful to me and my life. As the years passed, I came to realize that authentic success, the sort that gives you deep fulfillment, cannot arise out of the imitation of others. All people who have been truly successful in their lives have had one thing in common. They have had the insight and the courage to follow their own true passion and do what they really love. Jane Goodall particularly comes to my mind. One of my favorite writers, Anna Quindlen, said that if your success is not on your own terms, if it looks good to the world but does not feel good in your own heart, it is not really success at all. Probably the person who best exemplified this principle is Federal District Court Judge Robert Mirage, a University of Richmond Law School graduate. Judge Mirage would have been the first to tell you that his academic and career life before he went on the bench were okay, but not stellar. But he had a deep, heartfelt passion for jurisprudence, and it imparted to him a remarkable courage to do what was right and what the law required, regardless of whether it won him friends or made his life easy. His years on the bench were a lesson to us all in living a life of principle. He endured a great deal of public attacks in order to do the right thing, and his courage made life better for a great many people. You would think that it would be easy to know the desires of your own heart, but it seems to me that for most people, identifying their own passion is tricky. The traditional and well-worn paths are very clear, And that is usually what most of the people who are important in your life will prioritize for you. Finding your own true passion is hard work. There's no manual to read, no template to follow, no onboard navigation system. You are only going to find it inside yourself with serious introspection. Your heart and your intuition know what it is, and they're trying to tell you, but the difficulty can be hearing them over the din of all the other voices. It helps to recognize that your education here at this law school has prepared you to do many things beyond a traditional law firm practice. It has prepared you to think with depth and precision, to understand the principles of running a business, and to successfully persuade others on moral and philosophical topics. Best of all, we lawyers have managed to convince the rest of the world that we can do pretty much anything. It is really amazing the things that people will let you do just because you have a law degree. I think that truly lucky people identify their true passion and pursue it early in their adult lives. Less lucky ones find it later, but they do find it and they go after it, sometimes as a second career, like mine was. Then there are so many poor souls who never pursue the passion of their heart. That may be because they don't ever recognize it, or because they lack the courage to go after it, or because they don't have the financial or emotional support to do so. But for whatever reason, they toil away for a lifetime at something that means nothing to them, and they have very little to show for it. Once you recognize what it is that you really love, following your passion can require real courage. It's likely to run counter to every message that you have received about the path that is safe. In 1997, I had come to the end of my willingness to live the dreams of others, and I decided to devote what remained of my working life to what I really cared about, the well-being of animals. All the people I knew, except for my husband, Ed, told me I was making a mistake. I had law partners tell me that they thought I had lost my mind. My father bemoaned the fact that I was throwing away all I had worked for. The negative reactions of others were concerning, of course. Making non-traditional choices can be hard on your ego, too. The hardest part for me, really, was the many people who made the assumption that I was making the change in order to reduce my stress, to stop having to fight the battles of working in a large law firm, and as they always put it, to have more time at home. I think that that is a big part of the experience if you are a woman. People frequently characterize the choices you make when you are a woman as seeking fewer demands or less responsibility, rather than you're actually pursuing your own vision for yourself. My ego had to be strong enough to deal with the many people who did not believe that my work was important. I still encounter people who don't put any value on the work of saving the lives of animals, and they trivialize that work. But I learned to be comfortable in my own skin. I truly don't need for them to think that what I do is important, because I know it's important. In fact, I think that we would not have many of the terrible problems we are having today with our environment and climate change had we not been so arrogant for so long as to think that the human race is all that matters on this earth and all other living things are here only in service to us and our desires. Well, that great American philosopher John Wayne said that courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. So in 1997, I saddled up anyway. I left the large law firm in which I was a partner. I took a salary that was less than 1/3 of what I had been making before. And I went to work for the Richmond SPCA in a 1965 animal shelter that was made of cinder block and chain link. When it was quiet at night after all the other employees had left and I was working, I could hear the rats running over the acoustical tiles in the ceiling. 1 week before, I had had an office in the James Center. It was not just the physical circumstances that were unwelcoming. I faced a staff who thought I knew nothing about animal sheltering, which was actually true, and a board that had never been expected to do anything but say grace over the status quo. The organization had lived off of a meager endowment, and it had never raised any real money in the community. People in the local small humane organizations had made a tradition of hating the Richmond SPCA, and they were pretty hateful to me from the start. In the national humane area, we were not even on the radar screen. But from the very first moment, I knew I had made the right choice. I suddenly held in my hands the ability to save real lives every single day. I was so motivated that days evaporated without my even looking at the clock. They continued to do so for all the years that I worked at the Richmond SPCA. I knew then, as I know today, that thousands of animals every year depended upon me for their lives. They depended upon my ability to raise money and to achieve community support. They depended upon me to bring operations in on budget every year and to make good judgments that would maximize the number of animal lives that we could save with the resources that we had. They depended on my willingness to stand up for their interests and pressure our community and our government to treat animals humanely, even when very important people in this community got angry with me for doing so. They depended upon me to do things like taking our state and local governments to task for failing to protect animals when they were legally required to. I discovered that there is no greater thrill in this life than saving a life, unless it may be defending someone who is voiceless and defenseless without you. I loved my work, and I never saw it as work, and I still feel that way today. Let me tell you just a little bit about the Richmond SPCA. We save the lives of about 4,000 homeless dogs, cats, kittens, and puppies each year by transferring them into our care, primarily from shelters all over Virginia and the Southeast, where their lives are at risk without us. We focus primarily on taking into our care animals that need medical treatment for medical issues that are likely to cause them to be euthanized in another shelter. We are no kill. We provide extensive and expensive veterinary medical treatment by our large professional veterinary staff and professional behavioral rehabilitation to the vast majority of dogs and cats that are in our care. We adopt out about 4,000 homeless pets into loving, lasting homes each year. And most significantly, we operate our community's first and only full-service, very low-cost veterinary hospital to provide care for the pets of people of modest means who cannot afford veterinary care elsewhere. It is one of the very few such hospitals in the country. A funny thing happened to me once I focused on achieving my own definition of success. I started being asked to lecture at humane conferences, be a guest on radio and TV programs, write editorials for the newspaper, and speak at commencement ceremonies. Gradually, it started looking like not just my definition of success, but what others might see as success too. So on this very important day in your lives, I encourage you to stop carrying around the weight of other people's expectations. Toss out what your law school classmates expect, what your parents urge, what your friends value. Ignore the messages that our culture sends about success being composed of corner offices and brand new Teslas. Set aside gender roles and stereotypes. Do the work of your heart and your soul, not your brain and your bank account. Do not care what people think of your choice or whether they think you are seeking to work less hard. The truth is that when you start doing what you love, you'll never work another day in your life anyway. Stop worrying about their assessment of the value of what you do and focus on your own opinion of the value of what you do. Take the time to discover what is your own heartfelt passion, and then find the courage to devote your life to it. You may find it at a traditional law firm, or your passion may be providing counsel to the indigent, or serving on the bench or in elective office, or being part of a startup company, or leading a major corporation. It may be teaching at a college or a law school, or it may be running a nonprofit with a mission that you care deeply about. You and only you can know the answer, and only you will have to find the courage to pursue it. Once you do, you'll start to live and not just work and exist. When I reflect back on the young woman that I was when I was sitting right where you are now, the one who was so concerned about achieving success, nothing could have made her happier than to think that someday she would be invited back to her law school to give the commencement address. But that young woman could never have imagined the road that she would travel between then and now. She would never have imagined that she would stray so far from the mainstream, or that she would find a life's work that was so deeply meaningful to her soul, or that she could actually stop caring about what others thought of her. And that really, is the joy and the challenge of it. Realizing that if you're lucky, what is to come in your life will be nothing like what you expect it to be. I congratulate you on your accomplishment, and I thank you so much for the great honor of being with you today.